Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Raptors Show, powered by DoorDash on Sportsnet 590, The Fan. I'm your host, at least for the first half hour, Alex Wong. A reminder, we are streaming live on Sportsnet's YouTube channel and airing live on Sportsnet 360 Monday to Friday from 1 to 3 p.m. For those tuning in, looking for William Liu, he is down at the practice facility securing another interview of the century for this program, and he will be in at 1:30. We'll have Savannah Hamilton joining us then, and then Joseph Casharo and Joe Wolfon of The Score will be joining Will in studio for the second hour for a roundtable of the century. Now, since I'm just here alone, I would love to spend the next half hour just making Orlando Magic references and breaking down the wonderful movie Everything Everywhere All at Once. But there is a playoff series coming up, so I am joined on the line by Louis Zatzman of Raptors Republic. Louis, how are you, man?
I'm fantastic. We can make Orlando Magic jokes. I don't mind.
Listen, here's a challenge that I have put on myself between now and the rest of the season is that every show in the first segment, I'm obligated to reference the Orlando Magic once. And so far, I've done a good job of that. So as we preview the Sixers Raptors series in this first half hour, Lewis, my challenge to you is you have to work in an Orlando Magic reference at some point organically. All right.
Love it.
Yeah, this is a type of basketball nerdum that we're here for because we did establish last week, Lewis, that you are one of the preeminent basketball nerds, and we say this very kindly.
That's true. I mean, we're on the radio, so I'm not in fear of getting locked in a locker, so I'll take it fully as a compliment.
Yeah, so Lewis wrote a very comprehensive preview of Raptors Sixers at Raptors Republic earlier this week, and everybody who is looking to consume preview content this week. I don't know about you, Lewis. Like, there's still 2 more days until Game One, and this wait has become very excruciating for me. Like, how are you feeling right now?
Oh, yeah. I have been so excited for this series for so long. And I sort of, as you mentioned, the preview, very comprehensive, I sort of used up all the content I had to use on Monday. And then I had to wait all week. And I was like, oh, should I write this story? What about this story? Nope, I already did them both. So yeah, the wait is unbearable right now. At least we have playing games to keep us company.
Yeah, I was literally scrolling back on the Raptors Instagram feed to opening day when they posted all those beautiful black and white portrait photos of every single player. I don't know if you remember the Utah Watanabe glamour shots. David Johnson was laying on the ground with a
Hmm. Hmm.
basketball, and that's how I was killing my day this morning. But I guess I could have been doing anything else. Maybe watch tape, like what Will, Blake, yourself, and many people have been doing. But anyways, Lewis, let's get right into it. And we'll use your article as a framework to do this preview. And we're going to need an official prediction from you. I know you included it in your article already. But one of the things that really jumped out to me was how you talked about the transformation of both of these teams from the beginning of the season to where we are now in the playoffs. For Philadelphia, I think it's very obvious, right? The Ben Simmons, wow, Bill Simmons. Imagine if they got James Harden for Bill Simmons. The Ben Simmons saga was looming over them, and it was resolved at the trade deadline with the acquisition of James Harden. And that's clearly transformed their team, how they play, and also the depth on the roster. But more interesting to me is like thinking back about the Raptors. One of the things that you mentioned was, quote, the Raptors have shifted from a VanVleet led team early in the year to an almost heliocentric team dominated by Pascal Siakam. Love to just hear a little bit more about that in terms of what you've seen this season when you've been tracking this transformation of the Raptors team and how you think they're shaping up heading into the first postseason for this core group.
Yeah, it's a really good question. And when we think about the Raptors, the two things that come to mind most are forced turnovers, right? Running in transition and offensive rebounds. But they often don't come in a package, right? They're not co-identities. They're actually in some time, some shape, some form, uh, separate. And so early in the year, the Raptors really were just a transition-based team. They did grab offensive rebounds, but it wasn't like they didn't send four guys to chase every missed shot. And they looked a lot more normal on the offensive end. Fred VanVleet had the ball way more in his hands. He was hitting pull-up threes. He was scoring like 25, 26 a game for a really long stretch there. And it was just his team. We saw OG Anunoby sort of taking a few steps forward in terms of role. Scotty Barnes jumped out of the gate hot and never really cooled off. But Fred was really the guy. And then when he came back a month later, or when Pascal Siakam came back a month later, that is, it remained Fred's team as Pascal worked up into shape, sort of got a little better. And then over the next month or two more, it just totally shifted. Now, a lot of that came because Fred VanVleet hurt his knee in the middle of February, and it's just not been right since. So his attempts at the rim have declined. His burst with the ball has declined. He's just sort of done less because there's been less that he has to give. At the same time, they have this other guy who has so much more to give. And so I remember in the beginning when Pascal first came back, he was getting looked off by Svi Mikhailuk, right? And I remember one of his first quotes early in the year was like, "Do these guys remember who I am? Do they know what I can do?" And I guess they didn't, but they learned pretty quickly. And Pascal post ups, isolations, he's been running pick and rolls. He has been the guy. And so they've shifted from this sort of transition team to more of a half court team. They've played a lot slower as time has gone on. Pascal has really driven a lot of their identity. And with that half court identity has come the offensive rebounding, where they just chase every missed shots. They decided Fred's the only point guard. We're not going to play Banton. We're not going to play Malachi. We're just going to play five guys who are 6'8" all together instead of a backup point guard and just get every rebound. And that's a late season thing. So the identity has shifted pretty dramatically. It's been interesting.
Yeah, and clearly Pascal has been playing at this all NBA level, and I think we spent so much of the week talking about how much pressure the Philadelphia 76ers are under. I think I saw a clip on ESPN yesterday where they were ranking players under the most pressure this postseason, and James Harden was at the very top. And I think there's a lot of pressure too on Glenn Rivers, and there's a lot of pressure on Joel Embiid. But when you look at the Raptors side, I don't know if the pressure is the right word for Pascal, but clearly the way narratives work, given his performance in the bubble, despite the All NBA performance this regular season, I think all eyes are going to be on how Pascal is going to perform in this first round. And then in your piece, you dive into a lot of these individual matchups. And one of the most interesting ones, and we've seen this during the regular season matchups too, was the Sixers putting Joel Embiid on Pascal Siakam. Now, the level of success they were able to achieve, I was watching that game and you were watching that last regular season game. I don't think anybody on the floor could guard Pascal. But when you look at this matchup, how do you think the Sixers are gonna defend Pascal?
Yeah, so I think the pressure thing is a really worthwhile point because Pascal, yes, does have pressure after the bubble, but the other guys on the Raptors, there's like none. Compare the Raptors to a team that you wouldn't expect to be in the playoffs because no one expected them. Like, take the Orlando Magic, for example. If they made the playoffs, no one would expect anything from any of these guys. It's just all gravy. And that's where the Raptors are right now, except for Pascal. And so, really important point, right? Who's going to guard him? Because Matisse Thybulle is not going to play in Toronto. He's like their only big wing. Tobias Harris is just too slow a foot. Danny Green's a little small. James Harden can't keep up. They just don't have anyone except for Joel Embiid. And Joel Embiid can get stops on Pascal, sure. He is one of the greatest defenders I've ever seen. He is a phenomenal player. But Pascal Siakam loves to take the ball out, behind the arc, isolate, attack from the outside in. And if Embiid has to step up and guard him, that's a huge win for the Raptors. He's their only rim protector. It's not just Pascal who's going to score the basketball. And so if Embiid just has to sacrifice his positioning to take Pascal out of the play, the Raptors have already won, that mini battle. And that should help their offense even more. So there's really no good answers in my mind for who guards Pascal.
Yeah, do you think the Sixers, if you were to guess, would start with that strategy in terms of having Embiid on Siakam to start the series?
I think you probably don't want to. You probably start with Tobias Harris and just say, if it works, then we're golden, right? You don't want to start with Embiid, see it not work, and then say, "Oh, well, we're done now. We just give up." You save your best for later, but it might just happen they have to switch Embiid onto him in like the second quarter of game one and then never go back. But I don't think they start from opening tip like
Yeah, former Orlando Magic Tobias Harris, by the way.
that.
With regards to Joel Embiid, if he does eventually, and I think he will eventually have to be, draw the main assignment of guarding Pascal, and then clearly the Sixers are going to need him to play at an MVP level on the other end of the floor. And we know the defensive strategies that the Raptors are going to throw at him. My question would be like, at what point is that asking Joel to just do too much as one person on this team, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, we saw it in 2019. They asked him to do everything. And sure, he didn't shoot really well, but without his defense, the Sixers were nowhere in that series. He was the only person capable of limiting Kawhi at all. And it's going to be even more of a burden. He doesn't have Jimmy Butler, who was incredible in that series. He doesn't have Ben Simmons. And James Harden, for all of his offensive ability, if he's just isolating and Joel Embiid is not touching the ball, Toronto's happy, right? And so Joel kind of has to do everything. Now he can, right? He is being really healthy all year. He is just one of the greatest players in basketball, top 2 or 3 MVP candidate. I mean, he can do everything, and for entire series. But Toronto has to find those weak points, sort of press on them. And one of them will be Embiid's foul trouble, his stamina, his all of those things. If he's asked to do everything for the entire time, well, that's where Toronto hits.
Yeah, I was thinking this morning too, as I was revisiting those media day photos, that we've talked a lot about James Harden this week. And, over and over again, we talked about concern level for him, whether he's going to be able to bounce back to, the James Harden that we've come to know, or even the James Harden that showed up the first two games in Philadelphia. And people will remember the Sixers were posting, post game, training clips of James Harden. Like he would put up 30 and 10 and run the stairs at the Wells Fargo Center, which, by the way, is my new favorite genre of social media content from teams. It's just posting players, working out after a game. I think that's just wonderful propaganda. But, when you look at James Harden, you look at his performance overall, you look at his performance in these couple games, these last few regular season matchups against the Raptors. How concerned should Raptors fans be in terms of James Harden returning to his MVP form?
Look, first of all, there's working out after games, and then there's working out after games. Kawhi Leonard used to go lift for 2 hours after basketball games just so he didn't have to talk to media.
Yeah, it's a good excuse. I would start lifting weights too, just to avoid media. So congrats to Kawhi on that. But yeah,
James Le-
yeah.
James Harden invites that. He says, "Cameras, get up here. Come look at this." So, I mean, James Harden's really a quandary for Philadelphia. He has played really well by and large since joining Philadelphia. He's had some bad games, and those bad games have come by and large against Toronto. It's just really hard to know what they're going to get. He is at his best, I think, one of the best 5 offensive players in NBA history. He's just that good. He is that able to just force the other 9 players on the floor to bend to his identity. He controls everything that happens when he has the ball in his hands. And we just haven't seen that so much when he's playing for the Sixers. And we haven't seen that at all when he's playing against the Raptors. We saw Chris Boucher take charges. We saw Chris block him. Precious Achua stuck with him in isolation with relative ease, forcing misses without fouling. The Raptors have a lot of those guys, really switchable, long, athletic wings who can stay in front of them, and they don't need to double team. They just say, look, if you're going to isolate against OG, Scotty, Pascal, Precious, good luck. That's good for us. And so it's so hard to know. I love on-off numbers, which is basically how good is the team when you're playing on the court minus how good is the team when you're sitting on the bench. And so a high on-off number means the team is much better with you playing. James Harden has phenomenal on-off numbers since joining Philadelphia. But without Embiid, when it's just Harden, his on-off numbers are terrible. He has not been able to win minutes without Embiid alongside him. And that's something that we never would have expected. He has won minutes by himself for years in Houston, even in Brooklyn. As unhappy as he was fantastic. And so we've talked a lot about Harden. You've talked a lot about Harden on your show because it's so mysterious. What Harden are we going to get? Nobody knows. Toronto seems uniquely capable of guarding him, but at his best, he's unguardable. So, what could we do to predict? All we can do is wait and see what happens.
Yeah, I think we can talk and talk about this, and we will continue to talk about this. But James Harden really is, for me, the biggest X factor in the series. Like he is going to swing the series one way or the other, and I think that's why there's a lot of concern, and that's why I'm just anxious to see on Saturday in Game One, what he's going to look like and what that Sixers team is going to look like. You also dive a lot into what I would term a lot of these kind of deficits that the Raptors have to fight against, given their style of play. And like in your review, you kind of go through and basically say that, Toronto's facing a lot of uphill climbs. There's a starter deficit, an efficiency deficit, a half court deficit. And we talked a little bit about the half court offense yesterday. I believe Vivek mentioned that they were like 25th during the regular season in half court offense. And then you basically conclude that some of it is quote unquote, you say in the article, dark magic. And if there's anyone to pull off a lot of dark magic, I would trust the guy wearing the NN hat, and not the Glenn hat. But like, when you look at the half court offense, and when you look at how reliant they are on offensive rebounding, et cetera, et cetera, what is your biggest concern on the offensive end for the Raptors in this series?
My biggest concern is that Toronto doesn't have enough pull up shooting to force Philadelphia's defense to just change what it's doing. Toronto has shooting. Fred VanVleet, one of the greatest shooters in the league. OG Anunoby's spectacular, right? Gary Trent, maybe the best of the three, at least in the last month or so. Pascal Siakam shot really well from the corners. Precious, right? The list goes on. Guys who can shoot. But Philadelphia plays a really conservative, traditional style of defense where when you run a pick and roll against Philly, they sit Joel Embiid in the paint. They get the guard defender to just go over the screen to sort of push the ball inside towards Embiid. They say, do whatever you want. Embiid is so big that we're going to guess you're not going to be able to do much. You're not going to be able to create advantages. And the answer to that is pull-up shots, step back threes, shooting over a screen, sidestep threes, all these things you do with the ball in your hands. And for all of the shooters Toronto has, very few of them are talented pull-up three-point shooters. Fred shot about league average, 33% or so. Gary shot 34%. And those are the two guys who hit pull-up threes. Now, if they are able to do that against Philly, well, then Embiid has to come up higher, and that changes the whole calculus. Philadelphia is no longer playing the defense they want to. And then the rim becomes open. All these other sort of cracks appear in the boat. Water starts seeping into Philadelphia's defense. But if the pull-up threes just brick, then Toronto's attacking, bodies in the paint. They're going to turn the ball over. They're going to be asked to, hit tough shots in the mid-range. Then the boat is strong. Philadelphia floats with ease. And so a lot of what I think Toronto's dark magic will rely upon is Fred VanVleet's knee. If he's healthy, he hits pull-up shots. Toronto's happy. If he's not, well, then who knows how they win. But I should add, Fred only played in the first game against Philadelphia, and he went bananas. He scored 30. He hit everything. The second game Toronto started, it was in the thick of the COVID, striking the team. They started Yuta Watanabe, who we love, not a starter on this team. And then the last two they won, they did it without Fred. They didn't hit pull-up threes. So, I say it's important, but somehow they went 2-0 without it. That's what I mean, dark magic. Like we can say what's important in Toronto just somehow managed to cobble together wins despite not playing very well.
Yeah, I think the Fred question with regards to his health and what he's going to be able to bring on a game to game basis in this series is maybe something that we, despite doing 2 hours a day, haven't talked about as much. And maybe we're just trying to look away and not, it's one of those things, when you worry about something in life and you just kind of put it aside until you really have to deal with it. Because,
Wisdom.
like, yeah, like I'm thinking about it, like, he's obviously been hampered by his injury. And, Will had that great clip of that one game when he forced 11 turnovers. And we can see from that even when he's not 100% fully healthy, there's still a positive impact that he can make on the court. but I'm not sure if the Raptors can survive him having like a 5 of 20 game. And like you mentioned, like the inability to kind of hit that pull up jumper, which he has really mastered this season. But then again, every time I say this about Fred, we come back in the studio the next day talking about how he hit the biggest shot of the game in the fourth quarter. And again, I might just attribute that to dark magic as well, because every time Fred looks like he's down and out, he will hit the biggest shot in the game. He'll make the biggest defensive play. But to me, like if you're talking about X factors, like James Harden rediscovering his MVP form is like number one to me. Fred's health would be a very close second to me, because if you're telling me there was a healthy Fred and a healthy OG Anunoby, because Nick Nurse was talking a little yesterday about still worried about his conditioning, I think there would be a lot more confidence in picking the Raptors to upset the Sixers in this first round.
Yeah, then I'm not really worried at all, to be honest, because Toronto handled them pretty easily without a healthy Fred, without a healthy OG. I mean, the only starter who played in all 4 games against Philadelphia was Gary Trent. And just to see how differently Toronto uses those guys healthy versus injured, it's staggering. Fred VanVleet stops being the point guard when his knee has been hurting. Toronto shifted him off ball. He's used a lot of, this might be a little too in the weeds, a lot of Iverson cuts to get the ball sort of on an empty wing. Usually he just brings the ball up, gets a screen, does his thing. Not so much when his knee is hurting. But I mean, it's crazy, those shots. That's the big thing. Hitting the big shots in the fourth quarter. Doesn't matter how much he's hurting. Doesn't matter if he's 1 for 13 before that. He just always hits those threes in the fourth, man. He is so unbelievably confident. And that's another big difference. If he's healthy, if he's hurt, he's hitting those shots. Does Philadelphia have a guy who's hitting the same shots?
Yeah, I mean that's a good question. No, I think even as they are right now, the Raptors not having all of their core guys healthy, just based on, how improved the Raptors have become, based on Pascal Siakam's play, like that's why so many people are looking at this series and saying that, this is the first round upset that they're picking. And by the way, all these dark magic references, we're going to catalog them under the Orlando Magic references as well. Because all magic is
Yeah,
the
there's
same.
something magic.
Yeah, there's
You
something
just had to pull
there's
you had to
something
pull ahead
magical
2
in
to
here.
1 in the reference count.
By the way, Will Lou is he's literally at practice. I think he's like in an Uber XL coming to the studio right now, but somehow he's connected to the YouTube chat. And Lewis, I just want you to know he just called you a certified Raptor nerd based on this segment. So I believe that is also a compliment.
Yeah, not the first time he's called me a certified Raptors nerd, and I hope it won't be the last.
I know Will's missing out getting to nerd over this. Meanwhile, he's saying that I'm talking really slow just to kill time. And I'm like, no, man, this is my speed. But listen, Lewis, before I let you go, we need to get your prediction officially here on air. So your Sixers Raptors prediction, and obviously anything you want to add to support that prediction.
Yeah. So basically, when I looked at the numbers, Philadelphia was a better team. Just flat out, they were better in all the things that make up a basketball game, right? Half court defense, pick and rolls, shooting. They were a better basketball team than the Raptors. But the Raptors are much more suited to the matchup. They are more able to dictate, how the 2 teams clash, what the identity is, on both ends, whichever team is playing offense. And it's hard because you have to ask yourself what matters more, just objective talent or subjective performance based on the context. And so I thought context mattered more. I thought the 4 games in the regular season mattered more. And I didn't think Toronto was going to win in Philadelphia. Game 7's always very hard to win for a road team, as Philadelphia found out in 2019. So I thought Raptors in 6, right? They win in Toronto. We know how crazy Scotiabank can get in the playoffs. And I just think that they have answers to Philadelphia's questions. And I don't think the inverse is true. So Raps in 6, baby.
Oh, I love that. I love that. We're putting together a full graphic at the end of the week because every guest this week has come on and made a prediction. And so, congratulations, Lewis. You made it to Glenn Rivers's bulletin board ahead of Game
Where do
Six.
I stand, by the way? Is everyone else saying Raps in 6?
Yeah, basically everyone except Harrison Sanford has picked the Raps in either 6 or 7 games. Harrison picked the Sixers in 7, but he did couch that by saying he's not very confident in that pick. So we're gonna put that in the graphic as well in parentheses that he's not very confident in Sixers and 7.
Wow.
But yeah, but listen, like this is the Raptor show. We obviously talk to a lot of people locally. But I do think, people including yourself, like, for me, when I say Raptors in 7, which I will tomorrow when I make my pick, it's because I'm a homer, because I'm biased. But when people like you say it, just go read Lewis's Raptors Sixers preview at Raptors Republic. Like a lot of thought and a lot of critical thinking has gone into it. So it's good. It's good to hear from people like you, think that the Raptors really do have this reasonable and realistic chance to make it out of the first round. And I know we've talked so much about house money and all this stuff, but listen, when the playoffs start, like nobody's trying to lose. Like I'm not trying to see the Raptors get knocked out in the first round. So I'm trying to take this house money like all the way through the rest of the night, like through the rest of these playoffs. So like let's get one round and then let's go from there because I think the confidence will just keep building. Everyone should check out Louis Zatzman's work at Raptors Republic and all other places. Louis, I'm sure we'll have you back on during the playoffs, and hopefully Will be here so you guys can properly nerd out.
Alex, man, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Always fun talking with you.
Yeah, for sure, man. That was Louis Zatzman of Raptors Republic. When we come back, we'll have Savannah Hamilton join us, but it's a good spot to take a break. I'm your host, Alex Wong. You're listening to the Raptors Show, powered by DoorDash on Sportsnet 590 The Fan.
Welcome back to the Raptors Show on Sportsnet 590 The Fan, powered by DoorDash. I'm your host, Walu. Thanks to Alex for holding it down for the first half hour of the show as I was at Raptors practice. I was away for a very good reason. We have another interview of the century coming to you tomorrow. I'm really excited. It was a really good chat. Not going to spoil what it is. We'll see you tomorrow. But Alex, great job, man. Can I just say, because I was listening, I was in the because it took a really long time for
what'd you take me?
For the rideshare company to then send the car, pick me up, and then
did you do
go over.
carpool just to save $5 or what's going on?
That does sound like me, but in the age of COVID, I'm probably not going to be doing that. So I was listening though, because I was intently listening. I was in the YouTube stream. Shout out to the LouTubers. I can't believe that's the term for it now.
I've never been happier to see you, bro.
Oh no, I'm serious. When I came in the studio, you were literally like praying. You were like, oh my.
So this is what it feels like when I just leave you stranded on Tuesdays and Wednesdays.
Not quite, actually. I think I could just talk to somebody for an hour about the Raptors. No, but it was great hearing you talk to Lewis. I just had a couple of things to give you some feedback on.
Yeah, let's go.
I thought you had an incredible quote. In the playoffs, nobody's trying to lose.
Yeah, that's my Magic Johnson.
That is tough. That's a tough statement. I mean, yes, you're right. In the playoffs, nobody is trying to lose.
All I'm trying to say is we've been saying house money all week, and I'm trying to explain to people who, didn't have a gambling problem in their 20s that just because you have house money doesn't mean you want to lose that. Like, you want to keep playing. You want to keep doubling up. Just because you're playing with the house money now doesn't mean you're supposed to walk away. I mean, yeah, either cash out or just have to, drive to Oshawa to, raise my credit limit to take out more money.
That's tough, man.
Yeah.
I don't want to hear any more of these
stories.
But
that was a quote of the century. But, I'm so happy that you're here to take the reins back.
It's great.
Because nobody wants to host less than me. I don't think there's a single person in the world
it is quite clear
that wants to host a solo show less than me. But we have another guest on the line as we try to make it through 10 hours of Raptors Sixers preview content. We're joined in the second segment here by Raptors 905 sideline reporter and the host of Raptors Today, Savannah Hamilton. Savannah, welcome back to the show.
10 hours of preview content? Jeez.
It's really
Thanks
tough.
for having me, Alex.
Yeah.
And Will.
We're calling out all stops. But before we even get into Raptors Sixers, Savannah, you were messaging me yesterday, and you did remind me that on one of your first appearances on this show during the preseason, you had called Scotty Barnes as the Rookie of the Year. So we've been talking a lot about Scotty, and just here to, let you take a victory lap on that.
Yeah, no, thank you. I will get my crown the moment he's officially named Rookie of the Year. So I'll hold off just in case there's a sweep that happens. Some Evan Mobley comes up in the mix or something like that. But I'm pretty proud of myself. No, I think it's awesome. Scotty Barnes has had quite the year, quite the performance. He was just coming into the league like such already a dominant player. Like, his body type was already an NBA body. Like, it wasn't like, oh, he could use like 15 more pounds or something. No, like, he was coming from Florida State, already pretty established that way. And then you was watching him play off the bat from summer league to preseason. He was just, his learning curve was like enormous. So I was like, if he keeps going this way, we're going to have a Rookie of the Year on our hands. And with the whole, like, with all the injuries throughout the season, there's been more opportunities for him to show why he's Rookie of the Year. When Fred was injured, he kind of played more of that point guard role, which as of more recently I think has really built his case for being Rookie of the Year more than the previous months this season. Because we've seen him dominate as a forward, but how many times have we seen him also be able to run a little point guard as well with right next to Pascal Siakam?
Yeah. It's interesting too, because I know for the Raptor fan base, like, you have to admire how dedicated people are to this thing, because some people have gone around and looked at all the media members who have like published columns about this is my award ballot. People have like gone on podcasts and radio and talked about this on TV, and they talked about their ballots, and people have actually done the work to compile the results ahead of time. Not the full results, because I think only like let's say like half the media will publicly announce it, right? The other half always will figure it out when the whole award is announced. But even tracking that as of right now, like Scotty is in the lead. Now it's close.
Mhm.
I think he had 13 first place votes the last time I saw. Evan had 10, right? And of course, second and third place, you also get points scored on those. So it's really important. If you don't make first, where do you seed? But ultimately, I think Scotty has made that jump. And I think, Savannah, like watching him closely and watching him all season, is there something to you that really stands out as like that is his special skill? Like going forward in the
Ooh.
league, that's something that he's going to be able to bank on for a decade plus and make a lot of money in this league because of this one skill.
You know what it is? His court vision, his basketball IQ.
Mm.
It's ridiculously high. I know some people are, oh, the way he drives down the lane, the way that he's developing his shot more, blah, blah, blah. No, it's his basketball IQ is going to keep him in the league. Because that's something that you could teach to an extent, but players just kind of, you have it or you don't have it. And his court vision's insane. How many amazing passes have we seen him make that only somebody who could see the court and also know to make that pass and take even the gamble or the chance at sometimes to make the smart play. So he knows his role and he knows when to step up in certain positions and what's asked of him. And he does so well. He's very versatile in that sense. So his versatility as well as his basketball IQ is going to allow him to have a long career, even when his body gets a little bit older, maybe later in his career, which, come on, like he's going to have like a LeBron James probably type of longevity if he stays healthy and takes care of his body potentially.
Yeah, one can hope, really. One can really hope. And I
One can
think,
hope.
honestly, with Scotty, like we've seen so much of the season. I think there's so much more potential for him to tap into because like the Raptors have had very few players like this come into their program where they're so young, they're so talented, and then they start right away. In fact, even under the Masai and Bobby era, like, one of the consequences of making the playoffs all the time is you don't get the high lottery picks, and the Raptors have done a really good job drafting guys, who have played years in college. Like Norm was a 4-year player at college. Fred was a 4-year player at college. They've taken guys who are more experienced. Pascal was in there a few years after redshirting too. So, Scotty is completely new for the program in that sense, right? He's like only 20 years old when he joins the team, and he's already done such a great job. And I think, the other thing I wanted to talk to you about, Savannah, is also the 905 season, which I don't know about Alex, but for me, last day of the season, April 10th, when the Raptors were playing the New York Knicks at the Garden, I really couldn't care less because I was just like focused on the 905 game. First off, not a good job scheduling both games at once because I would have really loved to have split my attention or given each thing my attention rather than splitting it. But yeah, Savannah, just take us through that 905 last game. I believe that's the semifinal there, one game against the Delaware Bluecoats. And
Pat
honestly,
McCaw and the Delaware
I
Bluecoats, by the way.
that one hurt. That one hurt just watching from home. So Savannah, give us the inside look at the Raptors 905 in their last playoff game.
Yeah, I'll give you the scoop from before the game, even. So I ended up talking to one of the Delaware Bluecoats in morning shoot around, Charlie Brown Jr.
Mm-hmm.
And I asked him, yo, like, well, how are you feeling approaching this game? Obviously, the playoffs for the G League are one and done up into the finals. So you could, potentially be looking at your season lost tonight or going forward. And he said, honestly, our team mantra is just be like water, just calm, cool, collected, just
Yeah.
like go with the flow of things. And he had a very like
He pulled
calm
out the Bruce
demeanor, like
Lee.
confident. I know, yeah. He said that that's like the coaches to like that's their mantra, right? And then with the 905, it's just win. But I talked to another player, I talked to Kevon Harris, and I was
Mm-hmm.
like, he was being honest with me. I was like, how are you feeling like going into this game? He's like, honestly, I think the team's we're kind of nervous, we're kind of anxious. And right then and there, I was like, uh-oh, that's
Yeah,
not good.
that's tough.
What happened really though during the game, right off the jump, Delaware set the pace. Like that's
Oh
really what
yeah,
happened.
well, they were going
Like
back and forth. Like
the score was incredible. Like it was like 81 to 70 to 73, I believe, at one point at half. And even 73 points is a lot of points to score at a halftime. But 81 points
yeah,
at halftime?
yeah.
Are you kidding me? It was crazy. So it was insane. The amount of scoring production that Delaware had. And I also, when I was talking to Charlie Brown Jr. as well, he was telling me that the team's biggest weakness was their defense, but they have a lot of offensive options.
Mm.
And absolutely, that's exactly actually what happened is that they said, oh, we're not going to play defense on the 905. We're just going to outscore them. And as a result, the 905, they were trying to match that same level of offensive production. But the issue is the fact that only Delano and Champagny could keep up. The rest of the guys couldn't keep up with the offensive end.
Mhm.
And they went, and 905 went away from their strength. 905 is ranked like number one in the league for their defense. And they didn't really focus on that as much as they were trying to like exchange baskets back and forth. And so ultimately, like Delano and Champagny, shout out to them. They really kept the Raptors 905 in the game for the longest time.
Mhm.
But it was one of those, it was one of those heartbreaking games because the Raptors 905, they had such an incredible season. They finished number one in the entire G League in terms of season record. So, and they lost to Delaware last year in the G League bubble, the gubble,
Mhm.
as they called it. And so, the same team sent them away last year. The same team sent them away this year. And give it to Delaware. They played their hearts out. Patrick McCaw, I think he may have a bit of a chip on his shoulder. Also, I don't know what's up with the blonde hair.
Oh,
I'm,
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
not.
No,
I'm
he
not
showed up
really
like
rating
Pharrell
it.
at the Oscars, or you remember that year Pharrell showed up and everyone
Yeah,
called him Juntao?
or like a little CB or something. I wasn't sure. I
Sure,
was like, I
yeah,
don't know.
yeah.
I'm not sure how I'm feeling this like blonde hair on you, Pat. But
Mhm.
do you, bro? Like,
Yeah.
so but yeah, no, he's balling still. So Delaware, they earned that. They definitely earned that.
Yeah, it was tough because I think for guys like Justin and Delano going down there, obviously, like, they've done a really good job with that team, and I think that they fit in to a lot of what that team does. But even just the rest of 905, like, I think they just had such a great year. They played really hard, and I mean, to me, it looked like Delano kind of ran out of gas a little bit too. He was going, like, again, as you mentioned, the pace was like nonstop. Like, guys were just like
Yeah, yo.
inbounding and running and not nonstop, right? So, I thought maybe Delano towards the end there was kind of getting tired, but then Champagny was great. And yeah, it's just too bad. I would have really liked to seen the Raptors 905 get back to the championship and potentially win that thing again. Because I think that, that was one of the huge launching points of like a guy like Pascal Siakam and Fred VanVleet, that run. I mean, their storied careers coming into the league together starts with the fact that they won the G League championship. And yeah, it's just too bad. But I mean, look, to me, it was really encouraging seeing Delano and his aggressiveness off offense. That's something that's been emphasized down there. But talk to us a little bit about Justin Champagny's shooting, because literally every time I tune into a 905 game, he would make 5 threes, like, no problem.
Yo, Champagny is quite the player. He plays with a chip on his shoulder, and he tells me that all the time. That he's always feeling like he has something to prove in a sense.
Hmm.
And so I think the 905 is his playground, and he's like, okay, well, I'm just gonna go out there and show them why I'm an NBA player. And it's sending a message to everybody, like across the G League, across the NBA. Like he's definitely right up there next in line. I think it's a matter right now of opportunity of where he
Hmm.
could
Yeah.
fit in on the next level. It's not because he's not a great player. And he's definitely shown out. Like, I think out of a lot of the uh two ways or assignment players that came down to the 905, like he's definitely shown that he's probably arguably the most dominant next to Delano.
Hmm.
And yeah, and he proves it night in and night out, and his shooting percentage is one of them. Like I think that was one of the things that was maybe not a critique, but slept on in a sense, because everyone thought of Champagny, oh, tough defense. That's a great reputation to have. But nobody thought Champagny, oh, go get a bucket. No. So I think in the G League, he's like, let me prove myself on offense and let me do it in the most efficient way. Because I've seen guys go off for like whatever, 30, 40 points, but their field goals are taking 20 shots, and like they're, only hitting at least like maybe 7 to 10, but they all tell me like they all want to be above 50%.
Mm.
So that's always their goal. And I think Champagny's, like, especially in the second half of the second half of the season, like not
Yeah.
the Showcase Cup stuff, he went off. Like, to be quite like transparent, it was pretty much the game right after Armani Brooks got signed. He went off for like 45 points and he didn't
Hmm.
slow down.
Yeah. No, and
Funny
listen,
that.
it is
Funny
funny,
that.
right? Because the subtext there was obviously the Raptors had opened up a roster spot at the well, actually no, they had an open roster spot all season, but they opened up more cap room to be able to sign a guy under the luxury tax. Whatever, this is all complicated, but like, the whole idea was that they were going to convert Justin Champagny's contract and sign him from a two-way into like an actual full-time contract, so that not only does he have the ability to play for the rest of the year, not only does he got a raise, but he gets to play in the playoffs. And then, you can obviously probably a training camp guarantee, if not a full guarantee for next year as well. Like, there's a lot on the line. And then, of course, the Raptors had all those injuries. And this is something where, when you're talking about opportunity, this is the NBA. Like, you have a situation where Fred's got a bad knee going on and he can't play and he needs some time off. Malachi steps in, but then Malachi goes down with injury as well. And it's like, well, they need somebody to come in, and it's a playoff stretch in that time, right? The Raptors were reeling. They need to bring in a guy like Armani who can run the point a little bit, who can shoot the ball a little bit, can guard on the perimeter. And then Armani gets his chance, and then when his 10 days run out, like, they ultimately sign him instead of Champagny. Now, of course, they still have the chance to sign Champagny. This is not something that's like you missed your chance. But for him, I think he's been working really hard all season to get to this point, and he's shown everything he can at the G League level. And I would be very disappointed if the Raptors were to let go of Justin, because I really do believe in him. I've seen a lot from him. He's a great person to interview as well. So selfishly on the media side,
Yeah, he's hilarious. He is so funny.
Yeah.
Like, the rumors, if everybody sees, like, oh, that's my son, like Delano and Champagne go back and forth saying, that's my son. Not just Pascal thing. Like, he's actually genuinely a hilarious human being.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, I mean, that's the NBA, but again, there will be more chances for these guys. And look, it's too bad, like the 905 season was really fun to watch, and now
absolutely
we get to focus, I guess, entirely on Raptors Sixers, which thankfully we've avoided to talk about. I'm sick, man. I'm sick. I want the series to start tomorrow, like tonight, actually. Please, like, I would love for it to start tonight. But before you go, Savannah, we got to give everyone's predictions on the series. So.
Oh yeah. Okay.
What's your prediction?
My prediction is, it's gonna be tight. I do think the Raptors are gonna come out of this, just because I just don't trust the process, and I don't trust the beard either. So, and Matisse Thybulle, that's the best thing that happened, is the fact that he will not be playing up in Canada. So that being said, I think Raptors in 7, but I'm also leaning towards Raptors potentially in 6, but I'm going to say 7 to be safe.
All right, fair enough. Alex, I see one more note in here.
Which one is that? Oh, that's right. Savannah, you've been doing so much work with MLSE, with the Toronto Maple Leafs, on the Raptor side as well. Everybody should check out her work. And, I've privately been, asking you, as my, number one person at, close to MLSE, to see if you could get me those beautiful new Toronto Maple Leafs jerseys, the collab that they did with Justin Bieber.
Shameless.
So I will continue to ask, and now I'm just asking publicly. I literally have a playoff predictions pool going with Will on this show, that if I win, he has to go buy me that jersey.
Really? So. You want it that bad?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's pretty. It goes pretty hard. I'm not even gonna lie.
I know, like, the reversible, like the other side with the yellow. Oh my.
Yeah, yo. Some people were not feeling it. They're like, oh, Boston Bruins. I'm like, nah, man. Like, it's a vibe. Like, and also even the black and blue is like pretty sick itself. But we'll see. Maybe, like, what's your playoff? What's your playoff prediction, Alex? If you're right, then maybe I'll try to plug you one.
I've asked for so much stuff that when I hear the "we'll see," I know the doors closed.
That's
on
a
that
no.
one. Yeah, I've gotten a lot of those. No, we're doing predictions like throughout the playoffs, like with every series, and then we're gonna compile them at the end to see, who got it more right. Me and Will. So
I didn't say we'll see to Rasta Pasta. Remember that?
Oh, yes. We still need to make the Rasta Pasta
Still need
trip.
to make plans. Yes.
I think since we said we're gonna go there, there's been like 3 different waves of the pandemic. So
literally,
we'll figure that out. But listen, Savannah, always appreciate your time, and I'm sure we'll talk to you during the playoffs.
All right, sounds good. Take care.
By the way, media availability is happening right now.
I know. I was just,
you
I
were
was
there.
just there.
You were
Why
there.
are you saying this to me? I was literally came.
By the way, your outfit is killing me.
Why? What's
so
wrong with
this is your outfit when you're told you're gonna interview someone from the front office.
It's just a jacket with a sweater. Like,
yeah, but you never dress like this.
What do you mean? No, I got fits.
I know you got fits.
This is the one thing that's not from H&M. This is actually my dad's from China, actually.
Oh, that's a grail, man. I want that.
That's right.
By the way, the best quote coming out of practice from Fred, he was asked if the Raptors have a plan B if they lose the possession battle and can crash the offensive glass. And he said, yeah, come on. It's Nicky Nurse, baby.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, no, I was there.
Yeah, I already forgot where you were coming from.
I was in the room. And I heard Fred say that. It's a great quote.
Oh, so you didn't rush here right after your interview of the century. You
Oh,
stayed back.
no.
This was my confusion.
No, well, listen.
This guy left me hanging.
So I finished my interview
oh my
about like 12:15. So
So you
I had plenty of time to come back. But I wanted to first off see who's in the gym.
Plus, you were sick of talking Raptors Sixers.
I got to avoid
So
one more
skipped.
segment of Raptors Sixers. I got to listen to you and Lewis talk about dark magic.
Yep.
So I'm still a little confused. Was that just like an Orlando Magic
No,
reference?
I guess you didn't read Lewis's article.
Okay. I guess no, I did read the article. Was it?
He referenced dark magic in there.
Okay, all right. Well,
Will
there was like
Will
literally
will only
four.
read
There's
half of your articles.
4,000. There's 4,000 words in that.
Half article reader.
All right, fair enough. Only one you write. Actually, I read half a cover story.
this
It's
guy's
long.
on
I got to the pictures in the middle, and I was
never
like,
got
this is
any
cool,
feedback
man.
for cover story. I'm like, this wasn't for him. Wait for
No,
the
no,
next
I
one.
learned a lot about Michael Jordan.
Wait for the next
A
one.
lot about Michael Jordan. Yeah. No, but seriously though, was at practice seeing Fred, and no, he looks locked in, man. He looks super locked in. He went through the bevy of options that they had planned for Joel Embiid. Obviously said, we're not going to give it away. We'll see it on Saturday in Game 1. But just hearing him talk about it and sort of the depth in which he spoke about it. Obviously, Fred is always an incredible quote, number one quote on the team, quite frankly. But there's a lot the Raptors have planned for Joel Embiid, as you would expect. And
You sense the confidence.
it's Nicky
calm
Nurse,
from
baby.
this team.
No, by the way, the theme of practice this week is Nicky Nurse, baby.
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot of Nick Nurse praise. Remember Thad Young being like, man, I played for a lot of coaches and a lot of teams, and I come to Toronto, I'm like, this is the best game plan I've ever seen.
Yeah, they gave him a whole binder. They gave him the all-you-can-eat menu.
Yeah.
Yeah. And now we've got Fred saying this. By the way, Precious was asked about, whether he feels the pressure going to the playoffs. He's like, no, I'm chilling. He said, I'm big chilling, is what he said, quote. So, listen, you got to go out there and win the games, but the vibes are good. The vibes are good.
No, the vibes are great. No, I'm really excited. So,
and I'm taking the second hour off. So
you know what, you deserve it, man. You deserve it.
Yeah, I'm glad I got your permission. No, we've got Joseph Kashara and Joe Wolf on from the Scores Pound the Rock podcast coming in. A little reunion for you. Maybe try to get some Sixers-Raptors in and not just score war room stories.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
We'll see. But we're going to take a break right here. I'm your host, Willow. You've been listening to The Raptors Show, powered by DoorDash on Sportsnet 590, The Fan. Welcome back to the Raptors Show, powered by DoorDash on Sportsnet 590 The Fan. I'm your host, Willu. A reminder, we are streaming live on Sportsnet's YouTube channel and airing live on Sportsnet 360 Monday to Friday between 1 and 3 p.m. We will be joined in the second hour by the Score's Joe Wolfond and Jessica Sharo. They're actually walking live into the shot. Go ahead. Oh, my goodness. Cash, look, listen, before you guys put on your headphones and turn on your microphones, I just have to say, he put on the intro. What's the wrestling intro? Is this Shawn Michaels? Shawn Michaels, yeah. The I know I'm sexy thing, yeah. Oh, man. No, it's great to see you guys. That's right. Yes, you turn the microphones on. You put your headphones on. There's dials where you could adjust your volume, you know. We've come a long way from the Squad War Room.
We're good.
Some of us have.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, you're right. Actually, some of you guys are still in there. No, I'm kidding. How you guys doing, man? You guys good?
We're good.
Yeah?
Had some security issues downstairs. We're good to go now.
No, that's all
We're
good,
to
man.
go.
No, we just, we had to obviously let you know what the home turf is, and
Alex
Alex went down to collect you guys. It's all
Alex came and saved the day. Yeah, just awkwardly staring at us. All right.
good. All right. Yeah, no, this is just like old times when we used to record Pound the Rock, and Alex would just be here.
Yeah. Just be.
not on a microphone. But no, it's great. Obviously, you can catch both of you guys on Pound the Rock. It's my enduring legacy at the Score. It's our enduring legacy at the Score, I would even say. And obviously you can check out tons of playoff preview content on the Score app and on the YouTube channel. You guys are doing everything, man.
Trying to, yeah. Getting the multimedia content out there. Yeah, things are good, as I know they are for you here too. So
Okay.
exciting times.
Yeah.
Playoffs.
Well, fun. I see you've worn the shirt for old times. Can we get? Oh yeah, get the face in there too. The Rasho Nesterovic.
Is this far enough back?
I guess so. Yeah.
Yeah, this is like one of the only pieces of Raptors merchandise I own. So
Wait, why?
Well, it's too much of
I
a
don't know why.
professional.
Oh,
So,
yeah, I got to maintain my sheen of objectivity.
as he sits live on air nationwide with a Rasho Nesterovic t-shirt on.
this is incredible. Where did you get this shirt again?
It was made by a friend of mine. Her name's Laura.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is a one-on-one.
I think there were maybe like 4 of them in circulation,
Okay.
but I think they're all spoken for at this point in time. Sad to say.
That's pretty impressive. Salute to Rasho Nesterovic.
Real heads know.
Yeah, definitely. Listen, he was. How do we get Rasho?
It was a trade.
I think, was that the Matt Bonner trade?
to San
I
Antonio.
think it was
yeah.
Bonner for
Oh.
Rasho.
And then Rasha was part of that division-winning team in 06,
Yeah.
07.
It kind of worked out.
Yeah.
By the way, speaking of Matt Bonner, you can catch him on Pound the Rock.
Yes, yeah, he did
That's
come on
right.
Pound the Rock a few weeks ago when Pop became the NBA's all-time winningest coach to talk about some fun Pop stories.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of them. Do you think Pop will retire now that he got bounced from the plane last night?
I think he'll come back.
Yeah?
Yeah, I mean, people expected him to be gone a few years ago. Like,
Mhm,
he
yeah.
was supposed to be gone when Duncan left, right?
That's right.
And
yeah.
I don't know, man. I think that he clearly still loves it, right? Even though he's
Yeah,
like
that's true.
crotchety and such a curmudgeon with the media, I really do think that he loves it so much. And this is like, I don't know. I don't want to like speculate about Pop's state of mind, especially when dealing with like intense tragedy. But like he lost his wife a few years ago, and I feel like I would expect that there's something to that where like he has basketball, right? Like that's what he has right
That's
now.
right,
And
yeah, that's true.
after going through like just such an intense and painful loss like that, I feel like you walk away from the other sort of like thing that has been such a constant in your life for so long, and I feel like that could leave somebody feeling extremely lonely and empty.
I mean, he, not to make light of obviously a serious situation there, but like he must seriously still love the grind of it, because if you look
Yeah,
at
he
what
does,
these
yeah.
Spurs teams have been the last couple of years, like these are not contending teams, or even as good as DeJounte Murray is. It's not like they're on the cusp of that either. Like this is going to be
Yeah.
a slow build in a non-glamour market. So he must just really still love the grind of day-to-day coaching to be coaching what is essentially now Hornets West. Just a yearly
Wow.
10th seed, losing in the 10th seed play-in every year.
You know what? That's a pretty good comp actually. Not just because they both lost last night. No, but it's interesting because with the Spurs too, like they're a younger team, but you could see the amount of talent that they're starting to collect, and like Devin Vassell, I think, had like 7 threes last night. Was really powering their offense. But anyway, look, we're not here. I don't know why we decided to.
Just going on this Spurs
I
diatribe.
think it's because I was talking about Pound the Rock, and obviously Pound the Rock came from San Antonio, and obviously Dwayne Casey, and now became a name of a podcast here in Toronto. But Raptors Sixers, this series. So look, we've already done so many previews, and I'm sick of it. So I had to come up with a new game. Shout out Paul Jones for this one. Actually, just speaking to him at practice. And he took me through a thought exercise, which I thought, honestly, I would do with you guys as well. So let's just say this is like this gym class, right? You got class 1 from the Toronto Raptors, and then you got class 2, the Philadelphia 76ers. They're all lined up on the wall. You guys are the 2 captains, and you guys are picking your teams. All right? Cash, you were my old boss, so I'm going to give you I'm sorry, Wolfon, you got the second pick. It's all good. All right, but you're going to get the first pick here, and we'll go in a row and see where we end up. All right, so you can have any player on any team. We're going to draft essentially teams. And let's say, we'll draft to like 7 each, like a full rotation. So, Cash, your first pick of the series?
It's obviously got to be Joel Embiid.
Okay.
Even though the Raptors or whoever would be the coach of I'm assuming Nick Nurse would be coaching this other team that Wolfon is putting together here. So even though even though they'd be constructing a solid game plan against Joel Embiid, as the Raptors will, and as they have the personnel to trouble him despite the size not being there, at the end of the day, he is still by far the best player in this series. He's a top 2 at worst, top 3 player in the entire league this season. I think as much as Siakam came on and was an All NBA candidate again this season and was just tremendous, and as good as Freddie is and all that, like, Joel Embiid's still the best player in this series. And I think, I don't want to get too cute here and try to pick a Raptor or someone else or say, oh, maybe it's Harden. No, it's Joel Embiid. He's the best player in this series. And
absolutely,
it should be an easy pick.
Are we including coaches in this? Because I wonder how far you'd have to go down before
you get. Okay, listen. We're not in Boston here. We're not going to be those people that say we'd pick Brad Stevens over a player. Come on, guys.
Over Giannis, not even any player. Giannis.
Yeah, obviously, like you would still go the player route first, at least like for the first few picks. But if you're talking about not just like, it's the difference between having Nick Nurse or having Doc Rivers, right?
That's a gap. That's a gap.
Anyway, yeah. So my pick, I guess it's tough, but I would have to go with Pascal Siakam.
Oh, okay.
I think.
I mean, worried there for a second. I thought you were going to say, when you said it's tough, I thought you were going to say James Harden. I was like, what?
I was picking between Pascal and Precious. It's
okay.
Precious, come on.
Fair
you're
enough.
Splitting hairs between the two of them. But no, I think like Harden's ceiling is still higher. Like if he if he hits his highs, I think he's still, despite the fact that he's basically a one-way player at this point, the offensive ceiling for him is so immense that I think if he hits that high and sustains it, you'd still take him over Pascal. But like there is so much more reliability there with Siakam. The floor is so much higher because of what he gives you on defense. Like if he is having an off night offensively, if he's not finishing around the rim, if the jumper isn't going down, you can still rely on him to be your bedrock defensively, to plug all of those gaps, to be a huge part of your game plan against Joel Embiid. And I just think you take that sense of security over the kind of high variance that you're getting with Harden at this point, because honestly, there's been more lows than highs with him over the last few weeks of the season, I feel like.
Yeah.
And it's concerning from Philly's perspective, like the way that he has played. And honestly, even when he has been at his best this season, I think there's still been a little some of that burst missing. This has been his worst season finishing at the rim, I think, since his rookie year. And you see it, like the finishing burst isn't there. Like even when he is getting a half step on guys, he's often resorting to like foul baiting at the rim because he just doesn't have that burst to finish through contact or finish through contests. And especially if the whistle's going to tighten up in the playoffs, I think that's concerning for him because like if he's not finishing at the basket, and also he hasn't really been hitting his step back three, like the passing's still going to be there, but I think we've seen in past postseasons, man, like the Sixers really need some secondary scoring. That's what they thought they were going to get from him. And if that's not there, then they're going to be in trouble.
Yeah, and Harden's 2 matchups against the Raptors as a member of the Sixers, I think, kind of are a precursor of what's to come and a good indication of what's to come in the series.
So.
In that, Wolf mentioned him maybe the passing still being there. And in the 2 matchups against the Raptors, I think he averaged 11.5 assists. He had 23 assists between the 2 games. It was higher actually than his average against everyone else since he's gone to Philly, but the scoring plummeted. I think it's like he scored 30 or 31 points combined in those 2 games. His effective field goal percentage was below 40. He turned the ball over 9 times in 2 games. Wasn't really getting to the rim. And a big part of that is where is he finding the mismatch when he's hunting mismatches on the pick, or when the Raptors are happily switching all those screens and it doesn't matter because it's okay. Precious Achiuwa's on Joel Embiid. Now he gets switched on to James Harden. If you watch that last Sixers game, Precious Achiuwa is more than comfortable defending in space. Yeah. In fact, he excels at it despite his size. Pascal Siakam, OG Anunoby, Scotty Barnes. Go through the list. Where is James Harden finding a mismatch that he wants to hunt? He's not. Yeah. And so also to, Wolfon's point about Harden also looking a bit washed this year and losing that burst and not being able to create separation and get to the rim, that you put it all together with the team the Raptors are defensively, he's going to struggle to me in this series unless he magically rediscovers the Harden of old out of nowhere, which I think is less likely this time around because this is not a situation where you can say, well, he was trying to get out of a place again, or, now, he's in Philly now. He's where he wants to be. There's not really any of those built-in excuses anymore other than to maybe just admit he's either becoming washed or isn't healthy. But either way, that's a bad combo for him against this team that is uniquely equipped to defend him. Having said all that, the 3rd pick will be James Harden.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was going to say.
Because,
okay.
Look, I think the 3rd pick would be between Harden, Tyrese Maxey, and Fred VanVleet.
Yeah.
I would go Fred if this was Fred a few months ago before the knees started acting up and all those minutes he played had piled up on him. And I know he said, I think today, that he's feeling better. The week off, I'm assuming, will definitely help him. But I also think, if I read the quotes correctly, I was driving in but he said the knee injury is still going to be there, or whatever's bothering him in the knee is still going to. He's not going to be 100% for the series, I don't think.
No.
And if he's not 100%, I'll still take James Harden. Tyrese Maxey's another one, but Tyrese Maxey's he's too exploitable defensively, I think. I know you can say Harden is that too, but I think if you look at those 3 guys and where they are physically right now, Harden's ceiling is still the highest.
I agree.
So I think it's a kind of a toss-up between those 3 guys, and a lot of it will depend on how healthy either one of Fred or Harden is. But if I had to pick right now based on all of them and what I would expect, Fred's knees are, I guess I'd go Harden, but begrudgingly.
Okay, fair enough. My stat to you is James Harden has more turnovers and field goals in the last 2 games against the Raptors.
Yeah.
Okay, Wolfon, you have the 4th pick.
I feel, are we just going to end up picking the Sixers and the Raptors if we go back and forth?
No.
There might be.
The exercise will work itself out.
I would take Fred over Maxey.
Yeah, come on.
I think the thing with Fred and the injury is, look, it's not like Fred ever is so reliant on the downhill burst. I think, honestly, if he can just get back to the point where he's hitting 40% of his threes, then you're good. Because his defense, I feel like, has not dropped off at all, despite him dealing with that knee issue, and that's like really impressive when you're talking about a guy who is already dealing with some physical limitations at the defensive end of the floor.
Yeah.
And I think just because of his IQ, like his incredible feel for like digs and weak side rotations and for like when to jump passing lanes, those heavy hands,
it's gonna be super important for
like
Embiid.
The opposing team has drafted Joel Embiid. I want a guy who's going to be able to dig down in the post, come up with some turnovers, cause chaos above the break, and get out and run the other direction. And also, I think if you're looking at somebody you want as a pick and roll partner for Pascal, Max is actually, he's shot the ball really well this season. He's actually shot it better than Fred if you just look like at pure percentage. But I want to be able to run like the Siakam inverted pick and roll. I want a solid screener, like especially if Cash's team is going to stick Joel Embiid on Pascal.
Yep.
And we want to run that inverted pick and roll.
Screen.
I need a guard who is actually going to be able to set a solid screen on Joel Embiid, and I trust Fred VanVleet to do that more than I trust Tyrese Maxey to do it. So in spite of the fact that Maxey gives you that incredible downhill speed, like the ability to just puncture a defense at the point of attack, to get to the rim, to attack without a screen, like that's huge. But I think in terms of just like overall skill, like and a well-rounded game, and what a player is going to give you at both ends of the floor, I would give Fred the nod.
Word. All right. Well, fourth pick or fifth pick, I guess.
I'm gonna go with Maxey. I think that
you're really just
we're
really just
alternating.
taking the Philadelphia 76ers. Okay, all right.
Listen, we're going alternate here. I think the thing with Maxey is he's the one guy in Philly's lineup, obviously other than Embiid, which he's not a perimeter player, but he's the one non-big in Philly's lineup that I don't think the Raps necessarily have a true answer for. Like,
why not though? We do have good perimeter defenders.
They have good perimeter defenders, but it's like Maxey's got speed, right? He can get. What I'm saying is they have answers for him, but they don't. The way Harden looks right now, I think the Raptors can actually solve him, right? I don't think there's a guy on the Raptors that's going to solve. Like Maxey, I think will still get his. He'll still get to the rim here and there. He's still going to beat guys here and there. I don't think they're going to completely shut him down.
Yeah, fair enough.
And I think that matters. The thing, going back to Fred though, by the way, like the thing I think is really interesting is that if you look at how much Harden especially, but also Embiid struggled in those last two matchups against the Raptors, neither one of Fred VanVleet or OG Anunoby played in either of those games. And I think that should be really concerning for the Sixers because Wolfon was mentioning the way Fred can kind of double and dig on bigs. Like that matters in that matchup against Embiid.
Yeah.
It seems
huge.
Funny to say that the smallest guy in the court is actually a big part of the defensive matchup against Joel Embiid, but he is a huge part of it. And the fact that Embiid and Harden, again, struggled the way they did without those two guys in the lineup, another concerning factor for them. But yeah, Maxey, I guess, would be the fifth pick. And I think this would be where I start drawing the line at picking Sixers.
Okay, good. Well, Wolfon, I'm very curious to hear this one because Maxey was the first one that kind of surprised me. I think the top four. What would you have with your third pick and I guess the sixth pick overall?
OG, I think.
OG, okay. Is this assuming health OG or just in general? By the way, I was out there in practice. He looks fine, man.
I was going to say, I think we're at this point with OG, we're assuming he should be pretty good to go. Right?
He's fine, man. He's hitting like 20 shots in a row. We're good.
I think, yeah. I mean, we're assuming a modicum of health, right? Like,
yeah.
The versatility that he brings you is, I just feel like that's an absolute requirement, really, in any playoff series, but especially this one where, yeah, you're going to be dealing with a lot of pick and rolls between a dynamic guard, whether that's Harden or Maxey, and an extremely imposing big man in Joel Embiid. And I would really love to have a player in that matchup who can toggle between those types of assignments, who can play on the perimeter as needed, who can bang in the post as needed, and then who at the offensive end, I mean, we talked about Precious Achiuwa and it was like a bit of a gag, but he's giving you a lot of that same stuff in terms of like the switchability on defense, the ability to guard one-on-one. His ball screen coverage is incredible, but obviously you trust what OG is going to bring you at the offensive end way more.
That's true.
And I think because he hasn't played a ton down the stretch here and the Raptors have continued to have all this success, it's become slept on a little bit just how important he's going to be. Because, yeah, there are a lot of guys who can do a lot of things for you defensively on the Raptors, but, not a ton of those guys can do what OG can do at the offensive end. And I think, especially in a series like this, when the Raptors are going to have a very hard time. I'm like losing, I guess, like the spirit of the exercise where there's no Raptors and Sixers. It's just me, the team that I'm drafted versus Cash's team. But, rim scoring is going to be hard to come by with Joel Embiid on the other side.
Yeah.
Jump shooting is going to be extremely important.
Yep.
OG's three-point shooting is going to be extremely important. And his ability to, when he's not hitting catch and shoot threes, he can attack a closeout and he can hunt a mismatch.
That's true.
He can go after.
You can post a Maxey. You can post even Danny Green to an extent.
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to post Tybalt, to be honest. Feels like it's a turnover.
In half the games that he can play.
That's true. That is true.
Yeah.
And
Milton, Harden's a hard guy to post.
Yeah, he's strong.
Don't post Harden. That's actually a good call because he's got good hands and he's strong. And and it's the classic. I remember back in the day, Bargnani was like, everyone was like, okay, Bargnani's a bad defender, but he's good in the post.
Yeah, he as a one-on-one.
You don't have to move. Yeah. You just stand there and maybe get the ball. Okay, all right, Cash, you've only taken Sixers. This is disappointing, but I get it. What's your next pick?
Scotty Barnes.
Scotty Barnes, I like it.
I think maybe some would go Precious here. Some might go Tobias Harris, but Tobias Harris is allergic to big moments and big games. So I think Scotty is made for the moment, in contrast. And I think, look, obviously the offense, you don't really know maybe what you're going to get, but I think he'll do enough off whether it's on the glass, on the offensive glass to keep possessions alive or getting second chance points or whatever the case may be. His passing, I think he still brings enough on the offensive end where even though his individual scoring or the shooting comes and goes, I think you still can at least know what to expect from him offensively. There's a dependability with that stuff, with the hustle stuff on the offensive end. And I think defensively, early on, you could say maybe his individual defense was disappointing, even some of his off-ball stuff. But I do think it came along as the season went on. Mm-hmm. And I do think, like, even if, say, you were trying to pick between him and a Gary right now, I think the difference is the fact that with Scotty's size, athleticism, strength, he is more so than Gary, obviously, is going to be one of those guys that's going to have maybe some possessions on Embiid and plenty on Harden, too. Scotty actually did a really good job in one-on-one defending matchups against Harden this year, if you look at the matchup data in those two games. And again, because I think he's one of those guys that's just tailor-made size-wise, length-wise, to be the type of player who could be on Embiid and then can seamlessly switch to Harden on those Sixers pick and rolls. I'm going with Scotty. I think he has the chance to be most impactful out of the guys we haven't talked about yet.
Okay. All right, he took Scotty. Are you going to take Precious? I feel like you want to take Precious, man.
I'm not going to because I just don't think the trust factor is there yet with him. If he continues to play the way that he's played post All-Star break, then yeah, I think I would take him over anybody left on the board here. But I think I got to see that before I believe that's actually going to be the case.
Okay, so who's your pick?
I feel like Gary is the pick.
Yeah, that's a good one.
It's like between him and Tobias, and I think to speak to Cash's point
about him being allergic to big moments.
Yeah, say that again.
I'm not going to say that, but what I will say is
name one big Tobias Harris moment. Sorry.
He is too often. Well, first of all, like, yeah, there aren't big Tobias Harris moments because in an ideal situation, like, Tobias Harris isn't the guy that you're relying on to come through for you in big moments.
True.
And when the Sixers have relied on him for that, he hasn't come through because I just don't think that he should have ever been put in that situation to begin with. Like, he's a tertiary or a quaternary option, in an ideal scenario. And if you ask him to do more than he's really capable of, you're kind of going to reap what you sow.
Yeah.
What I'll say, and like we're dealing with tertiary options at this point anyway in drafting these teams, but I think even in that role, Tobias Harris is too often just a reluctant shooter and not a rapid enough decision maker. And I think if there's one thing that you can at least rely on Gary Trent Jr. for, it's that he's going to be decisive and he's not going to be a hesitant shooter at all. And for like this role that you're looking for, like somebody to provide that supplemental scoring, the floor spacing, I think he's the guy that I would rather have over Tobias Harris.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Cash, it's back to you.
What is this now? My fifth pick?
It's your fifth pick.
So is this the ninth player overall?
Yes.
I guess at this point, it would make sense to go. Like, I feel like at this point, not picking Tobias Harris would be disrespectful. I'm going with Precious Achua.
Yes.
Because unless you've got a postseason EpiPen around, I don't want any part of Tobias.
Oh, wow.
But no, I'm going Precious Achua. I get what Wolfon was saying with like the trust factor and why you might not want him a little higher in this exercise. But I think at this point, I think he's done it for long enough. I know it's not even a full season. It is still a small sample size, but within the course of the season, I think he started to do it for a long enough period of time where you can just start to believe this is who he is at this stage of his development, and it's only going to get better. And the player that he's become at this stage of his development is like special defensively, the potential there.
He's
and
really
again,
good,
what I was talking about with like his ability to, he'll be one of the guys that can trouble Embiid in some ways, but seamlessly and effortlessly switch onto Harden and be completely comfortable doing it. And when you combine that special defensive ceiling with the offensive potential he's now flashing, and I get like, obviously, yeah, they probably don't want Precious Achua to be, having too many possessions where he's like on ball or anything like that. But still, as a shooter now, you have to respect him as a shooter.
You have to.
The guy was, what, a 36, 37% shooter on over 100 attempts this year? That's not nothing. Like, you have to respect him as a shooter. He's shown some flashes as an on-ball guy when he does have to create something for himself, especially depending on the matchup. So I'm at the point where if he's just what he's been the last few months and doesn't, improve at all over the next few weeks, I'd still take that player where I just took him. And again, even not to keep ragging on Tobias, but if it really was between those two guys for this pick, Tobias's offense, you can't get like guarantee what you're going to get from him in the playoffs, especially, or in big games. And so then if the offense is unpredictable anyway, I'll take the guy who's much, much more of a sure thing defensively.
No, it's totally defensible, which is pretty wild to say. But at this point, I agree. By the way, so the update is there's 6 Raptors picked already and only 3 Sixers. I think this is kind of the point I was trying to make. But Wolfon, your 5th pick and the 10th pick overall?
Yeah, I'll take Harris.
Okay.
I think of the options remaining, he's the best player.
Jalen Harris? No, I'm kidding.
And, you know, I think I'm looking at all the offensive options I have on my team now. I got Fred. I've got Pascal.
It's a lot of shooting on your team.
I've got Gary Trent. And I don't need Tobias Harris to do all that much for me, right? Like, if I can...
Good.
So Tobias
That's
Harris
what
is the fourth option on your hypothetical team, too?
That's right.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. That guy was born to be a fifth.
And I feel comfortable being
option.
in that spot.
Okay, all right. Cash, we got 2 more rounds, 2 more picks. Just choose carefully.
We're 11th now?
Yeah, your team is very athletic, I'm just going to say. I mean, you did get the first pick, which definitely helps in this case.
Man, I'm trying to think.
You've compiled a good number of options for guarding Pascal here.
I'm really kind of terrified. Actually, I really would love to see what Precious would do guarding Pascal. But
lock his ass down.
Where am I going here? Maybe Thad?
It's not a bad pick.
I think I might go Thad.
Okay, Thad Young. I like it.
Yeah. You know,
he's done well in the Sixers series, like in the matchups.
Yeah, he has, and he's a seasoned vet. You know, he's been there, done that. He's not going to be overwhelmed by the moment. You know, he'll make.
DeAndre Jordan's a seasoned vet.
Yeah,
he's been there.
Also,
no,
he should be a seasoned vet overseas right now.
Oh man,
an overseasoned vet.
Yeah,
oh, no.
But if Doc Rivers is listening to this, please, DeAndre Jordan.
Please call
DeAndre
him,
Jordan is still a great big. I think you should definitely. You might even want to split minutes.
I don't think Doc needs any convincing. Man.
Yeah, Doc,
preaching to the choir.
Yeah, I'm going Thad. Seasoned vet, not overwhelmed by the moment. You know, not necessarily. Although he's made some threes with the Raps, but it's more so if the ball ends up in his hands, you can count on him to at least make the right decision either way, and defensively, you know what you're going to get. So yeah, going Thad.
Right. We got a minute left in here, so real quick, Wolfon, your pick, and then we'll go the last 2 picks.
Is this assuming that Thibel's vax status is still what it is?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, because there's no time left for him to get the second one.
Okay, I'm going to take Danny Green.
Okay, I
think it's between him and Boucher, right?
I thought Boucher would be better, but all right.
I think Boucher has been better this season, but going into a playoff setting, like which of those guys do I trust more?
Again, I still think still thinking Chris.
I'm going with.
We saw.
I know you and Chris have mended fences and made amends, but
I'm going with friend of the Raptors show with Will Lou, Chris Boucher.
No, I like this. No, Cash's team is winning this one. All right, last pick.
Damn, who's left?
I think you just gotta go Thibault at this point.
You can draft Nick Nurse if you want to.
Oh, there you go. Damn.
No, you don't have to
I'll take Nick. I'll just roll with the 6-man roster and take Nick Nurse. He's only going to play 6 guys anyway.
Yeah, fair
works
enough.
out perfect.
Okay, all right. So, the point of this exercise was that, you know, there are 5 Sixers drafted, and there are, am I counting this right? So the Raptors got their whole 7-man rotation here and Nick Nurse. Okay, great. Well, I think this does favor the Raptors in terms of depth, but obviously the first 2 picks were Embiid and Harden for Cash, and you know. I think that is kind of how the series will go. We're going to take a quick break right here. I'm your host, Will Lou. You've been listening to The Raptors Show, powered by DoorDash on Sportsnet 590, The Fan. Welcome back to the Raptors Show, powered by DoorDash on Sportsnet 590, The Fan. I'm your host, Will Lou. I continue to be joined by the Scores, Joseph Casharo, and Joe Wolfond. And look, I wanted to get into a couple of tactical things too, because obviously, we went through this little playground exercise and took the teams, and clearly the Raptors kind of came out on top in terms of the depth, which I do agree with in terms of like in a playoff type of setting. Like I think there's more picks here that do favor the Raptors, but I think in terms of how the Sixers might approach it. So I was listening to Tyrese Maxey talk about this at Sixer practice, and he said basically, quote, like, we take care of the glass and we limit transition and we're kind of be good. Right? I'm like, you know what? Honestly, that does make sense, right? If you can take the Raptors out of transition where they're really good, if you limit their offensive rebounding, you'll probably beat the Raptors because they're not a very good like points per half-court possession team.
No team has thought to do that this season.
Right?
That's the thing. Just keep them off the offensive glass and out of transition. Like it's brilliant.
Simple. We kill the Batman.
Exactly, right? Easier said than done. That's like saying, the Raptors can say, well, we think if we take Joel Embiid and James Harden out of the series, well, it's like, obviously, Tyrese Maxey, if you keep the Raptors from doing what they excel at doing and how they sustain themselves offensively, then yes, you will probably succeed.
Yeah, and so I was thinking about this, though, and it's like, well, maybe there's some merit to what he says. Like, obviously, people always say the adage is the game slows down in the playoffs, right? People are more attentive to detail. People play harder. Maybe that means that they box out more or whatever. But then I was also, like, in this mindset, and I was like, it just so happened that I came across an article at 538 by Ben Dowsett, and the question was, are the Memphis Grizzlies too fast for the playoffs? Because the Grizzlies are actually a team built a lot like the Raptors. Like, they really win the possession battle. I think the Raptors finished second offensive rebounding. The Grizzlies are number one, right? Part of their success this season is winning the possession battle. And, I think obviously this was geared towards Memphis, but it has a lot of things that are pertinent to what the Raptors might do. And so in terms of the trends between regular season play and postseason play, transition is down about 4.9%, right? It's down. It's not down that much, but down 4.9% over a 10-year sample. There's something there. Time of possession does go down about 2%. So the possessions go a little bit longer, right? The thing to me that was really encouraging to see, though, was offensive rebounding percentage between regular season and playoffs has been up 4 years of the last 6 postseasons, which means I think for a team like the Raptors, they might be able to scale up that advantage that they have. And of course, in turn, second chance points is also up in a lot of those seasons where offensive rebounding is up. So I don't know. I guess, what can the Sixers do really? Like, is it just as simple as boxing out? Do they need to sort of change the rotations? Because if you're Glenn Rivers, which by the way, we have made a rule on this show that we respect education and we also respect good nicknames. And the Doc Rivers nickname came about because he wore a T-shirt to a summer camp one time, and it was a Dr. J T-shirt, and they were like, "Oh, you're Doc," and then he just ran with it for the rest of his life, another 40, 50 years. This is not a good nickname, but if you're Glenn Rivers and you're looking to see what kind of points to hammer home, how do you improve your defensive rebounding? Is it possible for them to do so without changing their personnel and changing the lineups that they play, or is it maybe as simple as Maxey says, you just box out and you're good?
Well, I think it's more than boxing out against the Raptors, because I think with the Raptors, it's not just that they have, one or two guys that excel in offensive rebounding. I think the thing with the Raptors and why they grab so many they send more guys to the offensive glass. They are willing, I won't say to punt on transition defense. What I think they're willing to bet on is that they have the athleticism and the speed on their roster to be able to both crash the offensive glass and get back. Mm-hmm. So unless it's more so the Sixers just making sure all 5 guys are committed to, securing that defensive rebounding before they head back the other way, that's really the only thing I can see where they can solidify themselves a bit more in the defensive glass. Because if it's just a matter of, we're going to box out their 2 best offensive rebounders, but that's not going to work, because again, with the Raptors, it's more of just the strength and numbers that they send to the offensive glass. And again, some of the guys are just, I mentioned a guy like Scotty. It's not necessarily that he's coming up with the offensive rebound every time, but he's got this knack for getting a hand on the ball, tipping it, whatever, just keeping a possession alive. There are things like that even just boxing out, you're not necessarily going to keep them off the glass.
Yeah, I think you could try and put some pressure on them by really making a point of running the ball. Like if the Raptors are going to crash, you got to be able to punish them in transition if they miss. And I think the Sixers are a pretty slow-paced team. And if they want to actually make the Raptors hurt and maybe make them reconsider that strategy a little bit, like they got to be getting out in the open floor themselves. And just factoring that into the Raptors' risk-reward calculus. Because right now, I mean, yeah, you mentioned the Raptors are second in the league in offensive rebounding rate. They're also number 1 in limiting opponent transition opportunities. That's a really tricky balance
How is that
to pull
possible?
off. It's possible because they've got all these really fast, long, interchangeable, athletic guys who can both sprint back, and like conditioning is obviously a huge part of this team, right? Because of like the style of defense they play, the style of up-tempo offense they play, and the fact that a lot of these guys are playing 38 plus minutes a game. It's kind of crazy that they've been able to pull it off. But I think the ability to cross match in transition is a big part of that.
Right. So you can just pick up anybody when you're back.
Right. And that's the benefit of having a lot of like-sized guys. So I think, if the Sixers can actually put some pressure on them in transition, then maybe that tilts the balance a little bit. And as far as like keeping them out of transition, I think the best way the Sixers could do that is just to like avoid turning the ball over. And it's interesting because like turnovers have been a big bugaboo for the Sixers in the past. Like basically throughout the Embiid era, they've been one of the most turnover-prone teams in the entire NBA. And I think they were 7th in the league this year at limiting their own turnovers.
It's pretty good. Yeah.
So I think maybe what we'll see is like them playing a lot of slow it down, grind it out half-court possessions where they're just letting Embiid work on the block. And like this is going to be, it's an interesting battleground because the Raptors are going to do their damnedest to speed them up. Like even if it's just, I remember Nick Nurse saying this at the beginning of the year, actually, when they lost a game against Brooklyn. He was kicking himself because he just let Harden ISO without coming up with a scheme to like get the ball out of his hands and actually put pressure on him to make passes that the Raptors could turn into turnovers. And that was one of like the Raptors' lowest forced turnover games of the season because the Nets were just playing so much ISO ball. So I think that's going to be interesting because like the Sixers will do that. Like they will isolate. They'll run Harden ISOs, Maxey ISOs, Embiid post-ups, possessions that don't involve them passing the ball and aren't conducive to the opposing team forcing turnovers. And the Raptors are then going to try and put them in position where like, oh, suddenly it's a scramble situation. Suddenly like there's a point to wing pass that you can jump. And, or it's like a cross-court pass where the ball is in the air and somebody can pick it off. Like, the Sixers are going to want to slow it down. The Raptors are going to try and speed them up. And I think, from the Sixers perspective, if you're saying what can they do to keep the Raptors out of transition, it's take care of the basketball.
I think, by the way, just on this point of like transition, like turnovers aren't the only way to create transition.
Yeah.
Another way to create transition is if James Harden drives and foul baits and falls over, or if Embiid foul baits and falls over. That's a good way to generate transition too. Plus, I think obviously in the open floor, your athleticism obviously matters a lot more. And I think based on the exercise we just did, like the athleticism advantage does rest with the Raptors. So I think there's also an advantage there. But, obviously I think, look, that's going to be one of their points of emphasis for sure. Cash, what were you going to say?
I was going to say, I think it works out well with what you just said about kind of tongue-in-cheek about them foul baiting and how that's a way.
That's not tongue-in-cheek. No, that's very serious. They're going to foul bait.
What I was going to say is, because, you were also talking about whether the Raptors' transition attack will translate to the playoffs, right? Because it does usually scale down in the postseason, right? The game slows down. It's more of a half-court game. There's this transition. What I'm fascinated to see in this series, and I think what will go a long way in deciding it, is what ends up being more translatable from the regular season to the postseason. Is it the Raptors' transition attack or the Sixers' ability to parade to the free throw line? Because the numbers that the Sixers, especially once Harden got there, the numbers they were already putting up in terms of free throw rate, like free throw attempts per field goal attempts, were high because they have Joel Embiid. Once they added Harden, the numbers were like preposterous. And you would think unsustainable, especially going into the postseason. So if it's the free throws and the whistle, right, that gets looser, tighter, I guess, and the Sixers' free throws are what dry up, that's a huge detriment to their offense and to them in general. Whereas if that actually holds steady and it's the transition game that dries up for the Raptors, obviously they're in trouble. I guess, there's a way maybe both end up drying up or neither one dries up and it's a scratch anyway. But I do think that'll be something that's really interesting to watch because if one of those things dries up more so than the other, that will impact this series.
Right. No, that makes sense. I think that is probably going to be, as you mentioned, like the free throws are going to be in Philly's advantage. Offensive rebounds going to be in the Raptors' advantage. Obviously, look, when we break down games, we're always looking at players and their ability to like, hit these tough shots and all this, and it's the star power, the narratives. But like when you really break it down to like, it's also a numbers game. It's who can win the possession battle, and I think that's where I think the Raptors definitely need to take it. Now, I think it's interesting too because this is brought up at practice. Like, Fred was talking about the Raptors have won in different ways too. Even if you look at the last 2 times the Raptors played Philly, first time held them to 88 points, they win based on their defense. Second time, Precious Achiuwa is hitting transition pull-up threes, and they win by their offense, 119 points. Now, I think maybe do you think it's a little too reductive to think about the Raptors as like they need to? The only way they win is by winning possession battles. Like, can they also win in a game where they're not winning the possession battle in this series? Maybe not 4 games where they don't win the possession battle, but can they win 1 or 2 games in this series without the possession battle?
I think that winning the possession battle is such an important part of what the Raptors do that if they don't win the possession battle, they have almost no chance of winning this series.
Really? Okay.
Like,
but can they steal a game with one of these two? Because you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah,
'cause
sure,
you could just like really lock in defensively in a game, and you can win.
Absolutely. No, I mean, any team can win in any game, like based on shooting variance, based on any number of things. And obviously the way that they play defense, and specifically the way that they're able to defend Joel Embiid, is always going to give them a chance. But even in the season series, which the Raptors won 3-1, the Sixers' true shooting percentage was like 5% higher than the Raptors was. Like the Raptors got outshot in those games, and they won those games because they were generating way more possessions, because they were turning the Sixers over more than the Sixers were turning them over, and they were dominating the offensive glass. So it's not, obviously there are a lot of other things that they are going to have to do, and a lot of things that the Sixers are going to have to do in order to win it. Like, you don't want to reduce it to one thing, but this is a really important part of what's brought the Raptors success this season. And I think they're going to be very hard pressed to win the series if they're not continuing to press those advantages.
Yeah, I think Wolfon hit it on the head. I mean, you can win one game. You can win a one-off, maybe not, but they're not going to win the series if they're not consistently winning that possession battle.
Well, Fred's quote on this was essentially, he was asked like, hey, do you have a plan B if plan A doesn't? Plan A is obviously
Nicky Nurse.
And he said, yeah, come on, it's Nicky Nurse baby, which, listen, there's a lot of Nick Nurse hype coming into this series, and I love it for him, really. I think it's been really good. Now, listen, we have about 7-8 minutes left in the segment here, and obviously we've talked a lot of the Raptors. By the way, Chris Boucher also gave a really great quote on OG Anunoby. He said, quote, remember when OG didn't play for like 2 weeks and he came back and looked like himself? That's how he's looked in practice. He's going to be ready for the playoffs. I haven't seen anything that makes me think he won't be ready. So that makes me feel a lot better, and I feel really good about that. But on Pound the Rock, the podcast that you guys do at The Score, you guys also talk the whole league, the whole entire NBA, right? And I guess we won't have enough time to talk the Western Conference, but Eastern Conference-wise, we know 3 of the matchups now. There's the last one's going to be decided. Atlanta is going to be playing Cleveland for the last playing game. I guess we could start there. Do you guys have a pick for that one?
Hawks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Cleveland, after this whole year where they played so well, are gonna not even make the playoffs at the end of it.
It sucks.
Correct.
But they got banged up at the wrong time.
That's
like,
tough.
The Hawks are
that's
dangerous.
a sad reality.
Hawks look really good. There's a lot of offense on that team.
Yeah.
Like, especially Hunter's look really good.
Yeah.
He's like hitting mid-range jumpers. He's playing through contact. I think he's like, maybe not this year particularly, but like 1 or 2 years down the line, he's exactly what this team needs.
Yeah. They're number 2 in the league in offense. Like,
yeah. Trey's incredible. You can't really stop Trey.
No.
We saw that last year in the playoffs. So, okay. All right. So assuming then those are the 4 series. I guess I wanted to start with like Boston and Brooklyn. Is there a chance? Like, I feel like, I don't know. I think the sexy blogger pick is just to say the Celtics are going to roll over them because the stats are so overwhelmingly in favor of them. But is there a chance for Brooklyn with their star power?
Absolutely. We talked about this on our Pound the Rock full playoff preview, which is coming out tonight. And I mean, I'll just say it now. We went through it and we came up with all the reasons why Boston is very much the better team. And at the end of it, I said, well, Nets in 6. Like,
really,
and it's again, I'm completely admitting that everything you look at tells you Boston's the better team. They're so well balanced on both ends of the court. Jason Tatum's made the full blown superstar leap. They're welcome. Like, everything is there. They've got home court advantage. But I don't know, man. Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving on the court together for a whole series, it's hard for me to see them getting bounced in the first round.
Even if they're getting guarded by like Tatum and Marcus Smart? with some rim protection.
I'll say this: the smart money is on Boston.
Okay,
but I think just there's a measure of star power there, and I do think Kyrie playing against Boston will matter. Like I think he's got something special in store, whether we want to see it or not. But it's
a good disclaimer.
It's
Kyrie.
one of those things where it's like, yeah, everything in your head tells you that it should be the Celtics, but I wouldn't even say the heart. It's just more so like that. Being drawn to the star power will tell you Nets.
Where'd you land on that?
I came away saying Celtics in 6, but I think even that pick, I feel like opens the door to the possibility that the Nets could pull it off. I mean, you're always going to have a chance when you have Kevin Durant on your team. When you have Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving on your team, then yeah, like that's a whole lot of shot making that in the small sample size that is a playoff series. Like you're never going to be in a comfortable position, right? Like if those guys are hitting their shots, then a lot of the schematic stuff just sort of falls away. Like those are just two of the least schemable players in the league because you can do anything you want. And sometimes they're just going to hit the difficult shot. And sometimes they're going to do it over and over and over again. I think.
And there's a psychological effect, I think, on that too. Because you can play your very best. You can try so hard. You can set 2 defenders and they hit a shot. It's deflating. It just is. It's human nature.
Yeah. But I think the Celtics defense is really difficult to attack. We're going to see them switch a lot. A lot of it's going to come down to like what the Nets can do against those switches. You know, if the Celtics are switching Marcus Smart onto KD, can he just shoot over the top? You know, is that going to be viable? If the Celtics are willing to switch their big guys onto Kyrie, you know, can Kyrie turn that into a pressure point, beat those guys off at the bounce, get to the rim where Robert Williams is not going to be waiting?
Right.
You know, I think that's how the Celtics have operated is they're going to flatten you out. They're going to switch the ball screening actions. They're going to make a point of preventing you from getting downhill.
Yeah.
And
they do a lot what the Raptors do, which is they dig in from the wing and swipe at the ball. If they give up like a wing 3 or a top of the floor 3, they're kind of more or less okay to live with that.
Yeah.
But they're not pulling out the corners like the Raptors do.
Yeah. And I would say, I think, you know, not having Robert Williams there obviously does make them more vulnerable inside.
Sure.
But they, do such a good job of, like, preventing teams from getting there in the first place because of all, like, the digging and the stunting that you're talking about. And just because, like, they can switch and their one-on-one defenders are really good at keeping the ball in front. And then they're facing a Nets team that, like, doesn't really get to the rim a whole bunch anyway.
That's
you know?
true, yeah.
So I don't think that vulnerability is going to come back to bite them as much as it might against a different team. So... yeah, the Nets could just shoot the lights out and win, but I would pick Boston to win in 6.
Yeah, that's the series to watch for me. I mean, obviously, in addition to Raptors Sixers, which I think those are the 2 ones that are going to go the longest.
Yeah. Bucks Bulls doesn't exist. That's a sweep.
Bucks Bulls is going to be a sweep. Yeah. I was doing some research on this. Chicago is 25th in offense and defense post All-Star break.
Yeah, they lost 15 of their last 22. They went 2-21 against teams that ended up with 50-plus wins.
Yeah, so they're 0-4 against Milwaukee this season. The only interesting
Milwaukee
thing
was like the worst possible matchup for them, even when they were rolling. Right?
Yes,
it was like this is the one team they need to avoid.
They literally have no one to guard Giannis, or even stack up in the paint. Maybe you don't have the individual defender, but you at least have to have somebody waiting at the basket. And if that somebody's Nick Vucevic or Tristan Thompson,
that's a problem.
It's a nothing. Okay, all right, we got 2 minutes here. Quickly, is there a chance Atlanta can do something to Miami?
Yes,
you like that? Okay.
I would
Atlanta's playing really well of late too. Like we can't even. It's not even just looking at their record or the whole season. It's like how well are you playing right now? They're healthy, minus John Collins. Like they're looking really good, man.
I think the Hawks defense would have to be better than it's been. Like you got to be on a string against that Miami offense because they will run you in circles. And I think a defense that is as inattentive as Atlanta's can sometimes be is going to be hard pressed to slow them down, even though I think there are like genuine reasons for concern with Miami's half-court offense. I feel like going up against a team like Atlanta that is maybe prone to getting back cut, to miscommunicating, to losing guys coming off of screens, like I think Atlanta would have to be locked in. And then at the other end, it's like, Miami's another team that just switches a lot. And against a really pick-and-roll heavy team like Atlanta, I'm curious to see what that would look like. But yeah, man, I mean, Atlanta can score with anybody, right? So if their defense can just be like a little bit more locked in than it's been throughout the course of this season, then I think they could give them a really good series.
Yeah, they'll fight too. Unlike the Sixers, they are not built to quit.
Ooh, I like that. No, listen, we've given Glenn Rivers lots of bulletin board material.
Doc Rivers has blown 3-3-1 series leads in the last 7 years. He has lost more game sevens than any coach in history. Joel Embiid in elimination games, 35 turnovers to 15 assists, and has shot 42% from the field. They're built to quit. They're built to quit. Tobias Harris, allergic to the big moments.
What is it you like to say about James Harden?
What I say about James Harden is when the going gets tough, James Harden gets lost.
Wow. All right. That does it for us today. I'm your host, Wolu. You've been listening to The Raptors Show, powered by DoorDash on Sportsnet 590 The Fan. Make sure you find The Raptors Show wherever you listen to podcasts and subscribe. And please rate and review our show. Thanks again to my producer and co-host, Alex Wong, to our guests, Louis Zatzman, Savannah Hamilton, Joseph Casharo, and Joe Wolfon, our board producer, Derek Bandale, and Jennifer Rolnick for helping us behind the scenes with the YouTube stream. I will talk to you soon. And finally, a message from our presenting sponsor. Discover the best Eastern neighborhood on DoorDash without leaving your home. So many options to choose from, and ordering is easy. For a limited time, you can get 25% off and zero delivery fees.